The bright screens in the command center displayed the strange symbols that had puzzled Earth's best minds for weeks. Finally, after countless hours of work, the computers translated the alien message. Alan Carter watched with wide eyes as words appeared on the main screen. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for. First contact with an alien civilization. "We are the Varaxian Imperium," the message read. "We seek peaceful exchange with your species." Alan looked at Susan Wright, who stood beside him with her mouth slightly open. They had worked together for years in the Terran Defense Alliance, preparing for this exact moment. Alan was the lead diplomat, a man with gray at his temples but kind eyes that put people at ease. Susan was the top xenobiologist, always curious and quick to smile. They made a good team. "We should answer right away," Susan said, pushing her glasses up her nose. Alan nodded. "Yes, but carefully. This changes everything." The next few months were busy and hopeful. The Varaxians shared information about their culture, science, and history. They appeared to be a species that valued order and knowledge. They sent images showing their appearance, tall beings with 6 limbs and smooth, pale skin. Their ships were beautiful, with curved lines that seemed impossible according to human engineering. Earth shared its own knowledge and culture. The United Nations formed a special committee to handle communications. People everywhere felt excited about the future. News channels talked about the Varaxians every day. Children drew pictures of what they thought alien friends might look like. Admiral Frank Daniels was less excited. He was an older man with a serious face who had seen many wars on Earth. "We know almost nothing about their military," he said during a meeting with Alan and Susan. "They avoid those topics." Olivia Tanner, the military strategist, agreed. She was sharp-eyed and never missed details. "Their history mentions bringing order to their region of space. That could mean conquest." Alan sighed. "We can't approach this relationship with suspicion. We need to show trust to build trust." 6 months after first contact, everything changed. The Varaxians sent a new message, this time with a demand. They claimed the 3 planets in the Proxima Centauri system belonged to them by ancient right. These were the same planets where humans had started building colonies and changing the atmosphere to make them livable. "You must remove all human presence from these worlds within 1 Earth month," the message stated. "These are Varaxian territories." The United Nations called an emergency meeting. Alan and his team worked day and night to craft a response. "We had no knowledge of your claim to these planets," they wrote. "We are willing to discuss shared access and resources. We seek a peaceful solution." The reply came faster than expected. "Your presence is an act of aggression. Your failure to withdraw will be considered a declaration of war." President Howard Barnes, a tall man with a deep voice that commanded respect, addressed the world. "We will not abandon our people on these colonies. We have offered compromise and cooperation. We remain open to peaceful discussion." The Varaxians cut off all communication. For 3 days the world waited, hoping this was just a diplomatic tactic. On the 4th day, the emergency signal came from New Terra, the largest colony in the Proxima Centauri system. The transmission was broken and filled with static. The colony leader Ben Phillips appeared on screen with smoke and flames behind him. "They came without warning," he shouted over alarms and screams. "Massive ships, dozens of them. Our shields failed instantly. There." The screen showed a flash of bright light, then nothing. Admiral Daniels called Alan at 3 in the morning. "The colony is gone, completely destroyed. 10,000 people." Alan felt sick. Could it be a mistake? A misunderstanding? The other 2 colonies are gone too. They knew exactly what they were doing. Over the next few days, Earth prepared for war. The Terran Defense Alliance activated all ships and called up reserves. Scientists rushed to improve weapons and shields. Citizens volunteered for military service in record numbers. A sense of unity spread across the planet as humans faced their first interstellar threat. Susan's team worked to understand everything they could about Varaxian biology and technology based on the information they had shared. "They might have weaknesses we don't know about yet," she told Alan during a rare break. Their ships use some kind of energy we've never seen before. 2 weeks after the colonies were destroyed, long-range sensors detected a large group of ships entering the solar system. The Varaxian fleet had arrived, and it was far larger than anyone had expected. The first battle took place near Neptune. Earth's ships fought bravely, but Varaxian weapons cut through their best shields like they weren't there. Admiral Daniels watched from the command center as ship after ship showed damage or stopped responding altogether. "We need to pull back," Olivia advised. "We can't win this fight today." Frank nodded grimly. "Sound the retreat. We need to regroup at the Mars defense line." As the remaining Earth ships fled back toward the inner solar system, they received a message from the Varaxian commander. The alien's face appeared on screen, with features that seemed almost calm. "You chose this path," the alien said in perfect English. "Your species had potential, but you overreached. This is the natural order. The strong survive. The weak perish. Your resistance is noted, but it changes nothing." President Barnes addressed the United Nations again. His face looked older now, tired but determined. "We did not choose war," he said firmly, "but we will not surrender in the face of aggression. Humanity has faced threats before. We have overcome impossible odds. We will stand together now, as one people." The government began preparations for a long conflict. Scientists like Susan worked day and night to understand Varaxian technology. Military leaders like Frank and Olivia planned defenses for Earth, and diplomats like Alan kept trying to find a way to communicate, to find a peaceful solution even as ships and lives were lost. No one knew then that this was just the beginning. No one could have guessed what the war would cost or how it would end. All they knew was that humanity faced its greatest challenge, and they would face it together. 2 years had passed since the first Varaxian attack. Earth was losing the war badly. Most of the outer colonies were gone now, turned to dust and floating debris. The defense stations around Jupiter and Saturn had fallen 6 months ago. Now, only the Mars defense line stood between the alien fleet and Earth. Commander Diane Ross stared at the large map, showing the positions of the remaining human ships. There were so few dots of blue light compared to the swarm of red that represented the Varaxian forces. She was a tough woman with short brown hair who rarely showed emotion, but today her eyes revealed her worry. "We lost 3 more ships yesterday," she told Peter Miller, who had just entered the command center. Peter was the head of the remaining Earth fleet, a broad-shouldered man with a scar across his chin from an early battle. "The Varaxians have some new kind of weapon. It cuts through our newest shields like they're made of paper." Peter nodded grimly. "We can't keep fighting them directly. We don't have the numbers or the technology." In another part of the base, scientist Greg Walsh hunched over screens filled with data. He had been studying Varaxian attack patterns for months. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but he couldn't stop now. He had found something important. "Look at this," he said to his assistant. "Their ships always attack in these specific formations. It's too perfect, too regular. I think they're using an AI to control their fleet movements." "How does that help us?" his assistant asked. Greg smiled for the first time in weeks. "Every AI has limits, patterns it can't break. If we can identify those limits, we might find a weakness." The problem was computing power. They needed to analyze thousands of battles quickly, and Earth's computers weren't fast enough. The Varaxians had damaged too many of their data centers. Meanwhile, in a testing facility hidden beneath the lunar surface, engineer Lisa Benson watched as her team prepared for another test of their stealth technology. The small ship on the launch pad was covered in special materials that could, in theory, hide it from Varaxian sensors. "This has to work," she whispered to herself. The last 5 tests had failed. The Varaxians always detected the ship somehow, but this time they had changed the engine design to reduce heat output. The test ship launched, heading toward a sensor array that mimicked Varaxian technology. For 10 minutes it seemed to work. The sensors showed nothing. Then suddenly, alarms blared. The ship had been detected again. Lisa slammed her fist on the console. "What are we missing?" There must be something we're not understanding about their detection systems. Back on Earth, the civilian government was moving people underground. Massive bunkers, originally built during old wars on Earth, were expanded to hold millions. Farms, with special lights, were set up to grow food. Water systems were built to recycle every drop. It was a desperate plan, but it might save some of humanity if the worst happened. President Howard Barnes met with his top advisors in a room deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. His face had aged considerably in the past 2 years. The war had taken its toll on everyone. "We need more time," he said, looking at each person around the table. "The Varaxians will reach Mars within a month. After that, Earth is next." "Sir," said Admiral Frank Daniels, "we've prepared the fleet for Operation Last Stand. Every ship we have left will defend Mars. It won't stop them, but it might slow them down." President Barnes nodded slowly. "It's time to authorize Project Endgame." A few people in the room gasped. Project Endgame was the final option, something so secret that only a handful of people knew what it involved. "Are we sure it will work?" asked Olivia Tanner, who had been promoted after correctly predicting several Varaxian attacks. "No," the president admitted. "But Chief Scientist Natalie Foster believes it's ready for deployment." Natalie was not at the meeting. She was working in a hidden facility deep under the mountains. Her team had been developing something that might change the course of the war, but they needed more time. On Mars, the defense preparations were in their final stages. Massive gun platforms pointed toward space. Shield generators hummed with power. Every available ship formed a protective barrier around the red planet. It was humanity's last major defensive position. Captain Jack Murphy walked through the halls of Mars Command, nodding to soldiers as he passed. Everyone knew what was coming. They could feel it in the air. The final battle was approaching. Jack had lost his family when the Varaxians destroyed the Europa outpost. Now all he had left was his duty. "Captain, the Admiral wants to see you," a young officer said, saluting. Jack found Admiral Daniels looking out a window at the dusty Martian landscape. "You wanted to see me, sir?" "Murphy, I have a special assignment for you." Daniels handed him a data pad. "Your ship is the fastest we have left. I need you to deliver this to Earth." Jack looked at the pad. It contained coordinates to the facility, where Natalie Foster worked. "What is this about, sir?" "It's Project Endgame. If it works, it might save us all." "If it doesn't..." Daniels didn't finish his sentence. He didn't need to. As Jack prepared his ship for departure, the long-range sensors began to sound alarms throughout the base. The Varaxian fleet had accelerated. They would reach Mars in days, not weeks. On Earth, Natalie Foster received the news with a grim expression. "We're not ready," she told her team. "We need at least 2 more weeks to finish the integration with the system." One of her engineers spoke up. "We could try to activate part of the network now. It won't be as effective, but it might give us something." Natalie thought for a moment, then nodded. "Do it. We're out of options." As the first wave of Varaxian ships appeared near Mars, humanity prepared for what might be its final battle. But deep beneath the Earth's surface and in small research stations throughout the solar system, a few brave people worked on projects that might yet turn the tide. The war was not over. It was about to enter its most critical phase. The frozen surface of Europa gleamed under the distant sun. This moon of Jupiter had once been home to a small research outpost. Now it was abandoned, or so everyone thought. Deep below the ice, in chambers that had remained hidden for thousands of years, a small team worked in secret. Eric Summers carefully brushed dust from a stone panel covered in strange markings. He was an archaeologist who had been studying alien artifacts before the war. When the Varaxians attacked, he had been ordered to join this secret mission instead of fighting. "Have you made any progress with the translation?" he asked Kim Davis, who sat nearby with several screens showing the strange symbols. Kim was a linguist with a gift for patterns. She had short red hair and always wore a blue scarf, even in the warm underground chamber. "I think so," she said excitedly. "These aren't just decorations. They're a language, but not Varaxian. This is something much older." She pointed to a repeating symbol. This appears over and over. I believe it translates to ascendant, or those who rose. I think that's what they called themselves. Eric moved closer to look at her work. And you think these ascendants fought the Varaxians? Not just fought them. According to what I can translate, they were at war for centuries. The Varaxians called them the silent enemy because their technology worked in ways the Varaxians couldn't understand. Then what happened to them? Why aren't they still around? Kim shook her head. The text says they ascended beyond the physical realm. Whatever that means. Their conversation was interrupted when another member of their team rushed in. You need to see this, he said, his voice filled with excitement. We found something in the lower chamber. They followed him through narrow passages cut into the ice and stone. The walls were smooth as if melted by extreme heat. Finally, they entered a large circular room. In the center stood a strange device. It was a pillar of what looked like black glass, with lines of soft blue light pulsing through it. What is it? Eric asked, moving closer. We think it's some kind of computer, the team member said. But it uses principles completely different from either our technology or what we know of Varaxian systems. Kim approached the pillar and studied the symbols etched into its base. These match the text about the Ascendants, she said. I think this is their technology. Eric hesitated. Should we try to activate it? What choice do we have? Kim said, quietly. Earth is losing the war. If this device contains knowledge that could help us, we need to try. After careful study, they found what seemed to be an activation panel. With trembling hands, Eric placed his palm against it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the blue lights brightened and the black surface of the pillar seemed to become transparent. Inside, countless points of light moved and swirled like stars. A soft humming filled the room and the lights began to pulse in a rhythm. Kim's screen suddenly flashed with new data. It's connecting to something, she said in wonder. The signal is spreading throughout the solar system. We need to report this immediately, Eric said, reaching for his communication device. Meanwhile, in space near Mars, the battle had begun. The Varaxian fleet had arrived in overwhelming numbers. Earth's ships fought bravely, but they were outmatched. One by one, the defensive platforms around Mars fell silent. Captain Jack Murphy's ship, the Defiance, was different from the others. It was smaller, faster, and equipped with Lisa Benson's latest stealth technology. While the main battle raged, the Defiance slipped past the Varaxian lines. Hold this course, Jack ordered his crew. We need to get as close as possible to their command ship. The Defiance moved silently through the battlefield, its new engines leaving almost no heat signature to detect. For the first time, the stealth technology was working perfectly. Sir, we're in position, his first officer reported. Beginning data collection. The ship's sensors recorded everything. Varaxian communications, ship movements, energy signatures. Most importantly, they intercepted messages between the Varaxian command ship and what seemed to be their homeworld. There's something strange here, said the communications officer. These messages mention the coalition and containment protocols. I think the Varaxians aren't acting alone. Jack looked at the translated messages with growing concern. They're talking about other species they've eliminated, dozens of them. The Varaxians are just the military arm of some larger group that targets emerging spacefaring races. But why? Asked his first officer. According to this, they see all new spacefaring species as potential threats. They eliminate them before they can become powerful. Jack's face hardened. We're not the first, and we wouldn't have been the last. The Defiance continued gathering data until a Varaxian patrol ship passed too close. Their stealth wasn't perfect, and the patrol detected something unusual. We've been spotted, reported the sensor officer. They're changing course to investigate. Time to leave, Jack ordered. Get us back to Mars. But as they turned to go, they saw that Mars was now surrounded by Varaxian ships. The human fleet was in ruins. There was no way back. Set course for Earth, Jack said grimly. We need to deliver this information. Back on Earth in her underground facility, Natalie Foster received two important messages almost simultaneously. The first was from Europa, reporting the discovery and activation of the Ascendant device. The second was from the Defiance, reporting what they had learned about the Varaxians and their coalition. Natalie's eyes widened as she connected the pieces. "This changes everything," she whispered. She turned to her team. "We need to modify Project Endgame, immediately." Her team worked frantically to integrate the new information. The Ascendant quantum matrix, once activated on Europa, had connected to similar dormant systems throughout the solar system. These systems operated on principles that the Varaxians had never understood. This is why the Ascendants could fight them, Natalie realized. Their technology works on completely different principles. The Varaxians couldn't counter what they couldn't understand. As reports came in that the Mars defense line had fallen completely, Natalie sent a message to President Barnes. "Project Endgame modified, ready for final phase, awaiting your command." The President's reply was simple: "Proceed." The final battle for Earth was about to begin, but for the first time in 2 years, humanity had a glimmer of hope. The sky above Earth filled with the lights of approaching Varaxian ships. They moved in perfect formation, thousands of vessels ready to finish what they had started 2 years ago. In homes and shelters across the planet, people looked up with fear. The Mars defense line had fallen. Now nothing stood between humanity and extinction. Inside the mountain facility, Natalie Foster worked without rest. Her team had connected their systems to the Ascendant quantum matrix. Information flowed at speeds they had never imagined possible. Ideas and solutions appeared almost faster than they could understand them. "The integration is at 90%, reported one of her engineers. "All defense systems are responding to the new protocols." Natalie nodded, her face pale from exhaustion, but her eyes bright with purpose. "What about the communication network?" "Ready. We can broadcast on all frequencies, including the ones the Varaxians use for their secure communications." She took a deep breath. Everything they had worked for came down to this moment. Begin final preparations for Project Endgame. Orbit above Earth, the remaining ships of the human fleet gathered. There weren't many, perhaps 50 vessels against thousands of Varaxian warships. Admiral Diane Ross stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking at the faces of her crew. They all knew this was likely their last mission. "Today we fight not just for ourselves, but for every species that has fallen to the Varaxians," she told them. "Today we show them that humanity will not go quietly." The human fleet moved into position, forming a protective line between Earth and the approaching enemy. It seemed hopeless, a final gesture of defiance rather than a real defense. Varaxian commander sent a message to Earth. His face appeared on screens around the world. "Your defeat is inevitable," he said. "Surrender now, and we will allow some of your people to live as servants," President Barnes replied from his bunker deep beneath the surface. "Humanity does not surrender to bullies. We have a different message for you." He nodded to someone off-screen. "Now, Admiral Ross." The human fleet suddenly accelerated toward the Varaxian armada. It looked like a suicidal charge, and the Varaxians responded as expected. They committed their entire force to crush this final resistance, moving their ships into attack formation. This was exactly what the humans had planned. Captain Jack Murphy's Defiance had reached Earth just in time, bringing the valuable intelligence about Varaxian communications. Now his ship moved silently through the chaos of the coming battle, approaching the massive Varaxian command vessel. "We're in position," Jack told his crew, deploying the quantum transmitter. A small device detached from the Defiance and attached itself to the hull of the Varaxian ship. It began to pulse with blue light, similar to the Ascendant technology found on Europa. Across the solar system, similar devices activated. Some had been placed by secret missions. Others had lain dormant for thousands of years, waiting for this moment. On Europa, the pillar in the ancient chamber blazed with light as Eric and Kim watched in wonder. Natalie Foster received the signal she had been waiting for. "All transmitters are online," she announced. "Project Endgame is ready." "Proceed," ordered President Barnes. Natalie pressed her hand to a panel that glowed with the same blue light as the Ascendant technology. Initiating now. At that moment, every remaining human vessel, defense satellite, and ground station simultaneously broadcast a signal unlike anything ever seen before. The signal was not destructive. It did not attack Varaxian ships or systems. Instead, it did something far more powerful. It revealed the truth. The quantum signal penetrated Varaxian communication systems and displayed unaltered historical records. It showed how the Varaxians and their coalition had systematically eliminated dozens of peaceful civilizations. More importantly, it revealed that human attempts to negotiate peace had been hidden from the Varaxian people by their leaders. Aboard the Varaxian ships, confusion spread. Many had been told they were fighting a dangerous, aggressive species. Now they saw evidence that humans had repeatedly offered peace. They saw their leaders' lies exposed for all to witness. "What is happening?" demanded the Varaxian commander, as his control screens filled with information he had tried to keep secret. "Shut down all communications." But the quantum signal couldn't be blocked. It used principles the Varaxians didn't understand, pathways they couldn't close. In the midst of the battle, several Varaxian ships stopped firing. Some turned away from Earth. Others actually moved to protect human vessels from their own fleet. The Varaxian High Command, seeing their control slipping away, sent new orders. Destroy Earth immediately. Maximum weapons. No delays. But these orders too were broadcast across the fleet. More Varaxian captains hesitated, unwilling to destroy an entire planet based on what they now knew were lies. On the Varaxian command ship, heated arguments broke out. A group of officers confronted their commander. "You told us they refused all peace offers," one said angrily. "You said they attacked our survey ships without warning." "They are a threat to our dominance," the commander responded, his voice cold. "All emerging species are. The coalition decided this long ago." "And how many have we destroyed based on these lies?" asked another officer. From her facility on Earth, Natalie watched the battle pause as confusion spread through the Varaxian fleet. "It's working," she said quietly. "But it's not enough. Some of them still want to destroy us." She turned to her team. "Prepare for final phase." Project Endgame had never been designed as a weapon of destruction. That was what the Varaxians would have done. Humanity had chosen a different path. Natalie sent the activation code and the quantum matrix fully engaged. The blue light of Ascendant technology pulsed brighter, connecting with ancient systems hidden throughout the galaxy. Earth broadcast one final message, sent not just to the Varaxian fleet but to every corner of the galaxy. "You chose war. Now face the consequences." The Varaxian commander, still determined to complete his mission, ordered his ship to fire its main weapon at Earth. His officers tried to stop him, but he had locked the firing controls. The weapon charged, aimed at Earth's surface. Millions would die in the first blast. But just as it prepared to fire, the blue light of the Ascendant technology surrounded the ship. The weapon powered down. Every weapon system on every Varaxian vessel simply stopped working. The same happened on ships across the galaxy. Not just Varaxian ships, but any vessel with planet-killing capabilities. Instead of a weapon of destruction, the Ascendant technology had created a shield of peace. As the Varaxian fleet hung motionless in space, unable to attack, messages began arriving from distant stars. Other species watching the conflict reached out to Earth. The first true galactic communication began, while aboard the Varaxian command ship, a rebellion spread through the ranks. The final phase of Project Endgame was complete. Now the real work would begin. 3 months had passed since the day Earth broadcast its final message. The Varaxian fleet remained in Earth orbit, but everything had changed. Their weapon systems were still offline, rendered useless by the Ascendant shield network. More importantly, a revolution had swept through their ranks after the truth was revealed. The Varaxian commander and his loyal officers had been arrested by their own people. Messages from the Varaxian homeworld spoke of similar uprisings as citizens learned how their leaders had manipulated them for generations. Alan Carter watched from the window of the space station as shuttles moved between Earth and the alien ships. After 2 years of war, the diplomat finally had the chance to do his job. "I never thought I'd see this day," he said to Susan Wright, who stood beside him. Susan smiled. The xenobiologist had spent weeks studying the information about different species that was now flowing freely across the galaxy. "The Ascendants planned this all along," she said. "They didn't disappear. They evolved beyond physical form, but they left this safeguard behind. And they waited for someone to find it," Alan added. "Someone desperate enough to activate it, but compassionate enough to use it for protection rather than as a weapon." Below them, Earth was healing. Cities destroyed in Varaxian attacks were being rebuilt. Fields were being replanted. People were emerging from underground bunkers to see the sun again. There was still much damage, much grief for those lost, but also hope. In the conference room nearby, representatives from 12 different species gathered. Some appeared as holograms, their worlds too distant for physical travel. Others had come in person, curious about the humans who had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. President Barnes entered the room, followed by Natalie Foster. The scientist looked tired but proud. Her work on Project Endgame had saved not just humanity, but potentially countless other emerging civilizations. "Welcome to Earth," the president began, addressing the gathered representatives. "For too long, the galaxy has lived under the shadow of fear. The Varaxian coalition eliminated any species they saw as a potential threat. Today we begin a new chapter." A tall being with purple skin stood. "My people were told we were alone in our sector," it said in a translated voice. "We hid our technology, fearing discovery. Now we learn there were others like us hiding, afraid. Some were not so fortunate. The Varaxians destroyed 15 known civilizations in the past 1,000 years, said another representative, this one appearing as a floating light. We watched, from hiding, too afraid to help. For this, we bear our own shame." The Varaxian representative spoke last. He looked different from the commander who had threatened Earth, younger, with sadness in his large eyes. "My people must accept the greatest shame," he said. "We were used as weapons by our leaders, told we were bringing order when we were bringing only destruction. We ask not for forgiveness, for what we did is unforgivable. We ask only for the chance to help repair what can be repaired." In the days that followed, a new alliance formed. It had no official name at first, though many called it the Ascendant Accord, in honor of those who had made it possible. Earth, despite being among the younger species, became its center, not because humans were special, but because they had been the ones to activate the SHIELD network. Eric Summers and Kim Davis continued their work on Europa, studying the Ascendant ruins with help from scientists of other species. The chamber with the pillar became a place of pilgrimage for people from across the galaxy. "The SHIELD network doesn't just block planet-killing weapons," Kim explained to a group of visitors. "It identifies the intent behind technology. Weapons, designed only for defense or for use against unmanned targets, still function, but anything created to cause mass destruction of living worlds is rendered inert." "How long will it last?" asked one visitor. Eric smiled. "According to our translations, the network is self-sustaining. It will remain active until a majority of intelligent species in the galaxy agree it's no longer needed." Captain Jack Murphy's Defiance had become a symbol of the new era. The ship that had once sneaked through enemy lines now led diplomatic missions to distant worlds. Jack still felt the loss of his family, but he had found new purpose in exploring the galaxy that was now opening up. "There are so many wonders out there," he told his crew as they prepared for their next mission. "So many people to meet, so much to learn, and we get to be among the first to see it all." On Earth, in the garden outside the New Alliance headquarters, Alan Carter sat with the Varaxian representative. The alien had a name that was difficult for humans to pronounce, so he had adopted the name Sam for simplicity. My people still struggle to understand how yours could have chosen not to destroy us, Sam said, looking at the flowers that bloomed around them. When you broadcast you chose war, now face the consequences. Many expected annihilation. It would have been justified. Alan shook his head. That's not who we wanted to be. The consequence of choosing war was peace. A peace the Varaxians couldn't control or manipulate. A peace that revealed truth and offered a chance for something better. My children will grow up in a different world than I did, Sam said quietly. They will know the truth of our history, both the glory and the shame. They will know the names of the worlds we destroyed, and they will work to honor those memories. As the sun set, lighting the sky with colors of orange and pink, messages continued to arrive from across the galaxy. New species emerging from hiding, ancient races revealing themselves after eons of secrecy, all reaching out, all wanting to join the conversation that was reshaping the stars. The final message from Earth had not been one of destruction, but of transformation. The war was over. A difficult peace had begun. And throughout the galaxy, for the first time in thousands of years, children of countless species looked up at the night sky not with fear, but with wonder about who might be looking back.